What's up, everybody? Episode 217. We are live, and we're always live recording. Can you be not live when you record a podcast episode? Like, I mean, obviously not live to YouTube, but like you're always live, right? When you're
always
recording?
live in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Nick's I think this means, I think live means it's currently happening. At most, there's like some kind of delay. So yes, everybody, you're hearing us 5 seconds later. But
no, I meant like in a general sense, like we would say we're a live recorded podcast. Yeah. But some people
also think we are alive. Like we're actually alive as people.
Yeah, we're alive.
Alive. Yeah.
Josh is here. Nick is here.
I am.
And
I'm going to attempt to make my microphone go onto the stand
while we're recording.
Myself. While we're recording,
Wonderful.
So I'm going to mute myself so we don't do a bunch. But if you ask me a question, I'm here.
Okay. Ben's not here. Are we allowed to say it all? Like, here's the deal. I don't know, but Nick's saying no. But here's an interesting thing. I won't say anything then beyond, Mr. Beast is talking about a premiere, and he's been going all over the internet. Mr. Beast talking about a premiere of what's it called, Mr. Beast Games or the Beast Games. Like I've been seeing this all over, and we just, Ben really likes what's happening over there, and I'll leave it at that. You guys can speculate all you want, but it is premiering, and I think it's going to be an interesting reality TV show to watch. And if you're a fan of the show, you'll probably want to tune in at some point. That's all I'll say. And
just bring over a small percentage of those subscribers over to our channel. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll take 1%.
Absolutely. 1%. Man, the disc golf world. Disc golf world. The disc golf world. Yeah, we had on Jefferson last week, the disc golf world. But I just mean in general, the world of disc golf is so fun to watch, and every off season has never let us down. And the off seasons where you think it might, something else pops up. And so we'll be talking about this new tour event series, GK Pro turning Go Throw. We'll talk about that a little bit for sure. There's a possibility that we get a really inside information. We'll have them join the show. We're trying here in the last minutes. Otherwise, I'll provide with you what I know. I have received information from the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and I will share some of what I know there and try not to botch it because it's a lot. But I do have information from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Maybe we'll be able to get an interview with someone from over there tonight as well. Other than that, Will Schusterick, new CEO of Prodigy. That's also a big news announcement that dropped. Prodigy has been in the news lately. That's something we're going to have fun talking about. We will be interviewing Will Schusterick. That guy was a good disc golfer and still better than me throwing lefty. But I mean, like, he was at the top of the game for a while. It'll be great to hear from him, his rise to where he is now in a different way from on the course to now in the manufacturer scene as CEO. And really kicking off the show here in about 10 or 15 minutes, Steve Dodge, founder of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, as well as Mats, and I'm not gonna do his last name right, so I'll leave it at that. Maybe I'll let him say it, but Mats from over in Europe, they just announced Future Disc Golf. Future Disc Golf being a junior focused event series. They did a press conference, if you will, and they interviewed a lot of people, lots involved over there. But the Åland Open, you heard of the Åland Islands, Josh? Åland Island disc golf.
Yes, I have. Right between Sweden and Finland. It looks like an awesome place.
Yeah,
that's about all I know.
It would probably take quite a bit to get there, but Åland is an island with, I think, 18 disc golf courses, or a lot of disc golf courses, and they think it's probably the best disc golf destination in the world.
Well, yeah, and that press conference is all about the junior scene, but I think I heard them say they're wanting to host the 2028 World Championships. If I caught that. I'm not quite sure. If it was hard to interpret everything they were saying. But either way, yes, they had the Minister of Education, Sports, Culture, the Minister of Economics on that press conference, which is just interesting when you got a smaller government who sees an opportunity with a sport like disc golf near Finland. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of expect big things. Be interesting to see. And if I were in the market to do a disc golf tour over in Europe, and I had enough time and money, I presume I'd put the islands It's right on my agenda. Yeah.
All right. So sorry, guys. Sometimes when I get quiet, you guys get happy. And when I get quiet, sometimes it's because I'm texting or doing background things here for the show. I would like to confirm, I wasn't sure, but here we go. 60 seconds later, I can confirm we will be having the CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour join the show at approximately 35, 40 minutes from now. Jeff Spring, everybody, will join the show. This should be an interesting one for anybody who's been following the disc golf industry right now and the announcement of other tours and players agreements and clauses of this and that. And we're going to let him kind of bring some clarity on that. And that will be awesome. And I will say we are fully unprepared for that interview. No, we're not fully unprepared, but we probably had a very little time to even consider lining this up. It kind of came together here at the end, but we're glad to bring it to you. So all that being said, the weekends go by fast. The work days go by slow, but we're here to talk disc golf. We hope you all are ready for this. Nick, you got your microphone set up?
Yeah, back to its normal. I don't have the right pieces, so not gonna work. The thing is,
I should have went full screen on you while you were trying to put it together.
Yeah, while I'm trying to mess around with everything. If everyone noticed, obviously, I do this from my living room apartment. My bedroom's too small, and I actually just bought a big desk that is a little bit too big for my living room. That's why I'm not really centered perfectly with the black screen behind me.
If you drive up here, sometime, I know that's a distance, but if you do, I have a green screen sitting here that you can bring back with you.
Yeah, some of our friends here at Olympus actually said that they have an extra green screen. Shout out to the Schrader family.
Is it the pull up? Is it like the pull up kind?
He said it's one that's foldable. So I'm not sure if it's yours is super nice. We've always liked yours. Anyways, eventually, we
can bring you back in studio, even though you're not in studio.
Exactly. And anyway, so I actually right now, the way my desk works, it's a V and there's a wide open space in the middle of it. So normally when I'm gaming, I'm closer up to the screen. You can't really see it right now. Actually, I'll try to show it, but my microphone setup right now is on an old box.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
So I have to comfortably put my knees against the box and not be super miserable for 2 hours. Anyways, I need to get a little stool, like a little circle table right here that just
5 years in, Nick will eventually get comfortable. And when you went from camping chair to gaming chair.
At least I got the nice chair now, so I'm super ecstatic.
That's what I'm saying.
That, we're slowly, and I got a really, really nice desk. I'm super happy about it. It lights up blue when I want it to. And anyways, it's super great, but it's still not podcast. And it's funny because I was almost debating in my head. I was like, I might just make my bedroom my office and make my living room my bedroom, because
sweet.
It's not like I don't have parties at my 300 square foot apartment. So it wouldn't be bad. But anyways, let's get back to disc golf.
For all of our longtime listeners though, Nick and Josh, you may remember this episode. And frankly, it was better for the viewers than the listeners, I think. You remember, Nick? We were interviewing Hannah. And then next thing you know, she's walking out of the room and into your room.
I was at my apartment in Virginia.
This scene, she just comes popping in, takes the rug out, and she walks back. People are like, wait, what? Yeah. You guys are across the hall from each other? It was pretty funny.
She was in the kitchen at the time. Her and Paul were in town visiting. And anyways, that was back when that apartment was sweet up in Virginia. But it's funny. After, what'd you say, Matt? 5 years? 4 plus years of doing this?
This is our fifth season.
Going into our 5th season.
Yeah.
So, after 5 years, I've moved what feels like 4 or 5 times since then. And so that's why I've never had a legitimate studio. But
no, we're finishing our 5th season, Nick.
Is it 20, 21, 22, 23, 24? Yeah.
We finished our 5th season.
You're right.
We're going into our 6th.
Going into our 6th year, and I still don't have a legitimate podcast studio. So when I get my next apartment, it'll at least be a 2 or 3 bedroom, and that will have a legitimate office. That's one of my dreams to have, is just my own office. And right now it encompasses half of my living room right now. So
okay, we are really excited in the Massachusetts area, and I would say let's go regional. New England in general. Rhode Island isn't really well known for disc golf. There are a few courses, and shout out Harry Chase out of Rhode Island.
Stud.
He's now just earned his tour card. So I
Which
guess
tour?
Yeah, which tour?
Oh, sorry.
As far as I know, there's
That
no
was
tour
good, Josh.
cards yet, but that was funny. We'll talk about that. But Harry Chase out of there. So, I mean, that's a big deal. Connecticut, a lot of great courses, great players. Wyatt Mahoney being one of those, the 14-year-old, 15-year-old. Or is he 16? I don't know. He's a kid. And the reason I bring that up is because that area, specifically down near Rhode Island, but in Massachusetts, Dartmouth, Massachusetts, disc golfers, be on alert. There is a new disc golf pro shop called Flying Saucers Disc Golf. Now, first of all, that really lends to like the heritage of disc golf, right? People throwing flying saucers. But Flying Saucers Disc Golf, and that is at 1040. Remember that number, 1040 Reed Road. So RR. Say that 3 times fast. Reed Road, Dartmouth. But 1040 Reed Road, Dartmouth. Now, the guy who runs this, Arnold, you're going to meet him. He's a great, fantastic guy. You're going to love meeting this guy. He carries all the big brands and most of the small brands as he's trying to be supportive of all the small businesses as well. He's really trying to give back to the disc golf players and the businesses alike. He's working to grow the sport. He has a disc trade-in program where if you give $2 off, no, I'll say this. It's not where you get, let me say it. He has a disc trade-in program where he gives $2 off per used disc towards a new one. So, and then they donate this to the school's youth program. So let me explain that. If you have a used disc, instead of throwing it in the trash, instead of leaving it in your backyard, I'm guilty of that as anybody, just like to disintegrate. Take that disc, bring it over to Flying Saucers Disc Golf in Dartmouth. He will give you $2 off for a new disc. So it's like free money. If you're not using the disc, bring it there, $2 off. And then they're going to take that used disc. They're going to donate it to a school youth program. That's pretty awesome.
That's awesome for sure.
And he's small, family owned. These are the people that you want to support. I know Scott Stokely's been going out and about really trying to put the spotlight on these local pro shops, saying this is the reason why disc golf is being supported in your area. Support them instead of going to places like OTB, instead of going to Infinite, all these big online retailers. And I got to be, clear. They're not big in the sense of big business. They're disc golf. But man, you can support the grassroots. That's this guy, Arnold, over at Flying Saucers Disc Golf. It's going to be awesome. If you hadn't heard about it and you're from this area, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, heck, go all the way down the East Coast or all the way up to the Northeast, all the way up to Maine. If you're in the area, definitely stop by. We'll be talking about them more. So shout out to Flying Saucers Disc Golf, 1040 Reed Road, Dartmouth, Massachusetts. So there you go. Thanks, Arnold, for the support. All right, that moves us into about 5 minutes out from Steve Dodge and Motts of Future Disc Golf. Josh, where would you like to go?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm so tempted to dive into all the hot topics. I'm curious, I'm going to share a small perspective here. I mentioned this before we went live. The disc golf off season, like you said, we're always have enough stuff to talk about. But I try to kind of figure out is there actually really actual drama in storylines, or is it because, and this is not a knock, is it because our sport's so small that everybody has an opinion on something, and just that alone, it's because it's the off season, we're what? We need some disc golf entertainment. So every comment, every nuance becomes a topic. And by the way, I love that. So that's, I'm not complaining, but it's just interesting to me. Even, our show last week, a lot of stuff about tours and sources. And then this week we see a new tour announcement and other commentary from other players and retired players on their perspective on problems with the tour and growing pains and business pressures. And I don't know, it's pretty interesting. And so Matt, you said, where do we go? Literally any one of these things are things we could dive right into, but we're going to have to pick at the top ones. Hey, this is probably not worth debating much, but did you see the news while again we wait to transition? Putting rule change consideration. I think when Doug, was it 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago, when he became president of the PDGA? Does that sound right?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in that first year, I'm sure there's been lots of kind of growth and figuring out where he can put his stamp of leadership on the organization. But one of the things he told us early on was he wanted to be a little bit more vocal in public And we could probably speculate whether that's gone well or not in 1 year. But one particular example is he published an article about how they're considering adjusting putting rules. And trying to put that out there early for conversation before we see it in any official proposals, and then we get some kind of like, crazy knee-jerk reaction. And so I think the primary thing amongst a bunch of considerations was to move the putting circle to circle 2. And here's the thing, we're not going to have a 20-minute debate on this in tonight's show. But Nick, I'm curious, had you seen that? And do you have reactions? And of course, the basic implication is by making the putting circle to circle 2 instead of circle 1 is jump putting, right? Yeah. Those kinds of issues when you're in the 40, 50-foot distance. Does this sit well with you? Does it seem like a good, obvious change, or are you not like it?
I mean, this has been a topic of conversation, I feel like, for years, whether as a player or now kind of in the more business side of disc golf. I don't mind them wanting to extend circle 1, but I wouldn't do it, 100% the first year. Like, I wouldn't go from 33 feet to 66 feet for circle 1. I think one of the things that separates disc golf from a lot of other sports is, don't get me wrong, our putting is, our baskets catch well for the most part. Our putting is easy in the sport, but it's also something it's really fun to watch that, 40-footer, 50-footer, 60-footer go in. It's great to watch throw-ins. That's, why we have big baskets, stuff like that. I think if we were to essentially make putting harder, which I think there are ways to make putting harder. If we were to make putting harder, though, it would also slightly hurt the viewing of disc golf. And the way that I'm trying to kind of fully explain this is, it's fun to watch success. I like watching people make putts. I hate watching people miss putts, especially those makeables. Like, don't get me wrong, every player is going to miss that 10, 15, 20, 25 footer, whether they can jump putt or not. But from 35, 40, 45, 50 feet, you have those players who the second they're at 34 feet, they step putt. And I'm only going to use Ezra Aderhold because he was tagged in this post.
Yeah.
I use him as an example of, he's someone where if he's at 35 to 40 feet, more than likely he's step putting that. He has practiced that. He loves the step putt. He's very successful with it. And I like watching that. I don't like, if you force everyone to stand still in circle 1, then I think we're going to see a lot more missed putts. And then it kind of is like, damn, you're, he's putting from birdie from 55 feet. He has to stand still now, which some players do it. Your Simon Littlesots, your Eagles, they do that. But he goes, he misses the putt. Okay, now he's got to tap in for par. I don't know. It just feel like, to me personally, it would make viewing it a little more boring, essentially, just watching more missed putts. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because they're trying to resolve the problem of people step putting and jump putting illegally, but it's so precisely tight that we all understand the problem with making them call that. And you just wonder, in some ways you just push the problem back beyond circle 2, but because of that distance, it reduces that impact, right? Because people inside the circle, that's really where you start seeing the benefit. You get further outside of that, you get a lot more people throwing the disc, right?
Yeah.
60, 70, 80, 100 feet. So I don't know. It's interesting. I just wanted to put it out there as a topic. Yeah. Like I said, we'll give it time for the disc golf world to digest that, and then all the right committees at the PDGA will process it, etc. But I like hearing that they're talking about things earlier.
Yeah.
It actually lets us bring it up like this.
One thing that I would say really quick before we jump into the interview, this will be quick, is, and I've had this kind of conversation with people before, is one of the reasons we love watching basketball, if anyone does like watching basketball, is players dunk it. Okay, dunking is really fun to watch. Dunking over somebody or on a fast break and they do a really cool dunk, it's great. It's a fun thing to watch. If we were to take the rim and put it to 12 feet, okay, or 11 feet, whatever, you just took a lot of players out of the category of being able to dunk the basketball. I'm using random feet. I'm sure a bunch of players could still dunk at 10.5, 11 feet, maybe. Who knows? I have no idea. But that's what I mean. It's we would kind of it would be more boring to watch basketball for that. You would see a lot more layups, and layups aren't nearly as fun unless it's, a really cool finger roll or whatever like that. So that's kind of my thought process behind it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, we'll see. I that's an interesting take, Nick. I like the idea of simplifying it and moving it to circle 2 and circle 1.5, like you said, taking smaller steps. I get the idea. I think it's a little harder to execute because right now so much stuff is getting marked at circle 1 and circle 2. It's an easy concept, but I don't know. I'm sure they'll play around with the numbers.
Go to 40 feet. See how it goes. See what it's like. 2026, go to 50. And maybe go to 60 feet by 2026. But don't go. I don't think it would be good to go from 33 feet right up to 66 feet, personally. But
Guess we'll see.
Okay,
Awesome.
everybody. Ready to bring in our first guests of the evening. We've got 2 of them lined up here, and let's go ahead and do that. I gotta hit a few buttons. 3, 2, 1, just like this. Boom. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have you, Steve Dodge and Mats. Now, Mats, we've never met, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. So let me get an audio test here. Hold on. We should be good, but I want to double check. Can we hear you? Let's give that a go.
Adamczak.
Yeah, okay, you said it. Adamczak. Adamczak. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's never mind. I'm not going to be rude. I was going to say it sounds like something else in English, but that's okay. Here we go.
Yeah, I got the picture. Yeah.
I don't even know what it sounds like, but I feel like I might say that if I was upset with a throw I had, and I apologize. But you look like a wonderful person, and frankly, Steve, I'm glad I made you laugh. And wonderful announcement that you guys made the other day, future of disc golf. Now, you may or may not know Mats, but Josh and myself, we were invested in the junior disc golf world about what was that, Josh? 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah. And we really pushed hard, and we were able to run the United States Junior Disc Golf Championship. And so, like, we have a lot of, I guess, interest in the junior world. We've since pulled back on that, but like our hearts are always interested in seeing what these players can do as well. So we have a true something in common there. And Steve, welcome to the show as well. How do you say your last name?
Doge.
Doge. Wonderful.
Dodgy. Officially, it actually is Dodgy.
Oh, officially.
Like if I was in Scotland or wherever we're from.
Right. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we have a Matt on here, and is it Mats or Mats?
Mats in Swedish.
Okay, great. I'm glad. So you can call me Matt. I'll call you Mats. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, good to have you. What time is it there? Are you in Sweden right now, Mats?
Close. I'm in Finland or Åland Islands, where it's a self-independent small country, actually. But it's 2 in the night.
Wow.
Ooh. And you said you're on the island right now? You're on Åland Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
I live there.
I live there. We were talking about it in our introduction tonight, saying that it may be the world's best disc golf destination, at least island, right? How many courses are there?
18.
Okay, so I guess I got that right. I don't know if it was a guess or if I remembered it, but 18 courses.
No. Yeah, and it's that was the start for me 4 years ago, that I wanted to get this island to be a tourist place for disc golfers. So we started from 1 course and built 12 in 2 months.
Wow, 12 in 2 months. We've seen Avery, I think, post about this and visit. Did Avery contribute to the designing of this at all, or was it people from the island?
No. It was Pasikoivo from Disc Golf Park.
Okay.
And he designed 10 of them. And then Arno from Power Grip also designed 1 of them. And the idea was to have different courses with the same design idea. So it should be some kind of a Walt Disneyland, in that sense, that you could play all the courses in one day, but that is impossible today.
That is impossible. So Steve, you're here as well. I don't know which one of you would like to do this to announce what's going on. I know both of you have a part in this, but maybe you can start telling us, Mats, what was the announcement? And you don't have to give the whole press conference, but what was the announcement?
Very short. We wanted to have something happening for the juniors, and that they could play on the same level. I mean, the pro and the amateurs could be together from the whole world. World Championship is only the amateurs, and in Europe you have every second year the best players, but from Europe only. So we try to find a mixture of that, and we really believe that the future of disc golf is the juniors, and try to find a common ground, and that is hard in Europe because it's so big difference between the different countries. In Finland they have 2,416 juniors, and in Spain they have 2. And how can you get something to work together? And that's why we have the different ways to qualify. And that's sort of trying to have both young juniors from Spain that not has a high rank could still have a good fun experience to play together with the best in the world. And that's where we came into Steve Dodge and get the help from him. So you can continue, Steve.
I do want to I want to make a couple clarifications, Matt. You said that the Åland Islands might be the #1 disc golf destination. I want to push back a little bit, and let's just say the #1 disc golf destination that has more than one course on the property.
and I think I did a quick clarifier that said at least the island. So it has an island, but
yes,
or it is an island.
Well, yeah, Maple Hill has an island too on hole 18.
Wonderful.
So, I do want to say when Mats presented this to me, and Matt, if you want to pull up one of those, the first graphic with the map on it.
I'm going to try this here. Whoop.
There we go. Ooh. When Mats, this was the slide in the presentation that made me say, yes, I want to be a part of this. This is someone who has a vision, who has partners, and who sees what this can become. In 2025, the Åland Open will have qualifiers from, as you can see, all over Europe, and then also from North America. And on January 10th, when we have our announcement, we will have the qualifiers built out for the Maple Hill semifinal as well. So in that we have all these qualifiers from Europe going to the Åland Open, we will have a bunch of qualifiers in North America, and I say North America purposefully, going to Maple Hill. And then Maple Hill will be a semifinal that will send people over to the Åland Open. And one of the in the press conference, one of the things that Mats mentioned was that there's going to be a summer camp and there's going to be a premier competition. And I think it's worth clarifying. Basically, there will be 2 tracks. There's the premier competition, and then also there's the clinics, the Discmania Combine. I want to experience disc golf in another country, and I want to grow into that other premier track someday in the future. So there would be 2 separate tracks. And as far as I know, everybody going to the Åland Open from North America would be going into that premier track. Obviously, someone's welcome to travel over and play in the other track if they want, but that would be a separate thing. But the people that are going to be qualifying are going over there to compete in a premier junior competition.
Wonderful. I can only support endeavors like this, having, like I said, contributed a little bit ourselves. It's incredible. And Mats, you had people in your press conference, I don't remember all of the names and their roles, but who mentioned the playability, the ability and the level of these juniors is very high, to where people sometimes are surprised or upset that a kid can outperform them. I am long past that now. I think the juniors, this is the title of your endeavor here, Future of Disc Golf. And when we did kids disc golf, we said the future is now, because we believe that the kids are doing great things right now. We don't need to wait. They're outperforming a lot of adults. So great endeavor. Is there anything else you guys like to talk about? I know we sent over another graphic too, Steve, if you want to hit that, or Mats, anything else?
I think that's worth hitting for sure.
Okay. You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, please.
All right.
So this is the second slide that got me. Well, actually, there's a slide with a bunch of jerseys on it that have the map of the Åland Islands as the logo, not the logo, as the design. they look spectacular, and there's going to be different ones for each country, and I'm very excited about that. And Mats, if I mess anything up here, or if I say something I shouldn't say, feel free to shut me up quickly. But on this graphic, if you look on the bottom chart, the bottom line, those are the qualifiers, and those happen in May. And so in the US, there will be 10 to 12 of those, and in Europe, 15 to 20, I'm guessing. And then in those, if you qualify, you would move on in June, and you would reach the Maple Hill Open. And then if you win, or if you're on the top, I think it's going to be top 3 in each division. If you qualify through the Maple Hill Open, you would then go to the Åland Open in August of 2025. And then in 2026, this whole thing will repeat. And it's fun. If you look down on Australia in that map, there's actually a little notice of China. Mats, is that true? Is China actually going to be sending people to the Åland Open?
It's to 99% sure if we can get the insurance fixed. I talked to them earlier today, so China is going to send people and hopefully have a qualification also. And also Ethiopia and South Africa have been in contact after the press conference. So it's really fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, at Junior Worlds this past year in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there were competitors, children, youth, juniors, representing the People's Republic of China. And it was really neat to see them walk in, at the, what do they call it? The flags of nations or whatever they do, this opening ceremony. And that was really awesome. So having competitors from all over the world come together to play, junior competitors. And Steve, you're at my house on Saturday, and I probably too much, like I do, was just telling you how excited we are to watch junior competition. In my mind, I know we watched the pro level. Being in person for the top juniors in the world to compete, and this is why this endeavor is so great, is just as exciting in my mind. You just have to put them on the stage, Steve.
100%. It's very well named. It is the future of disc golf. The people that we see on this stage, we will see on the bigger stage in the next 1, 2, 5 years. It's very, very exciting. I don't have any other points that I want to hit on this. I do have 2 other things. One on the topic you guys were talking about before we came in, and then one, I presume, on the next topic. But
all right.
Before we go there. So just to kind of clarify, so in fact, right now, the word tour is being used a lot in a lot of our media discussions. But this, I don't see, and Mats, maybe you can confirm, or Steve, this isn't really, of course, a player might choose to play in different events. But really, it's more about qualifying at an event to get to the Åland Islands event. Rather than an expectation that you quote unquote tour as a junior, right? Where you're intending to try to accrue points in play events. That's not really the case here. So if I'm a junior and there's an event in my region, I'm using that term loosely, right? But I register for that event and try to play well, and then that's how I qualify. Is that the basic premise? Yes? Yeah, see head nods.
Yeah. Yes, and I think what we are really happy is that we get spots to European Open 2026, because that will be a thing that will trigger the up to 18. And to be clear, it's not up to 15, it's up to 18 who have the spots to European Open. And that, I think, is really crucial to get the best players coming.
Can I get some clarity on that point? Was this winners of the Åland Open in the up to 18, or in the US we would say 18 and under? But is that the winners of the Åland Open that would play a spot in the European Open? Okay. Yeah. So there's something to be won there is what I'm hearing. For the 18 and under, if you're ambitious and you're competing at Junior Worlds and things of that nature, and you would like a chance to play on the European Open, to me, that is a major selling point right now to anybody listening.
No
to this.
pun intended. Major. Major.
I actually do. And I'm very familiar with the junior disc golf world, and these players who are, think of, why am I having a brain freeze? Jake Mon, he won Am Worlds, he won Junior Worlds.
Ryan Mon.
Ryan. And like somebody in his situation that would like a chance to play in the European Open, there's players this year like that who are going to choose to play Worlds and others. If they play one of these qualifiers, fly over and play the All-Indo Open. Now you have a chance, likely if you win, to play European Open. And to be clear, you said 18 and under. So the 15 and under would not be going for that, but that's totally understandable. Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Yep.
Fantastic.
But this is a pilot year, and if it works out, we will probably get more spots.
Yeah.
2026.
Awesome.
So,
yeah.
So I'd like to make a couple quick clarifications. And Mats, what you're not supposed to say if it works out. You're supposed to say when it works out.
yeah.
But
it will work out.
It's a
It will
translation
work out.
of English, Steve. Don't worry. It will work out.
There you go. So there are in the future disc golf, there are 4 divisions, and I'll say 4 divisions currently. I'm going to push to try to go to 6 divisions in the future, but Mats already knows that. So it's on the MPO side, under 18 and under 15, and on the FPO side, under 18 and under 15. So there's 4 divisions, and I say MPO and FPO purposefully. I asked Mats, do we want to allow people who are under 18 but playing on the Pro Tour to compete in these events? And he said, we want the very best at these events. So it is officially designated as MPO and FPO under 18 and under 15.
Yeah.
Which,
it's interesting. I heard
yes.
you using the word open, and I was going to say open usually means open, and in this case it is, but age brackets.
But age restricted. And having said that, there will be no payout. The payout will be in the form of travel assistance. So if you are an AM, we definitely want you to play in these events. And even if you're an AM that doesn't think you have a chance at winning, it's going to be a fantastic experience. It'll be a great player pack, and it'll be a very big junior event worth playing no matter what. But if you're an AM, a high quality AM, you will have an opportunity to play amongst the best and qualify with the best.
So Gannon was just edged out by his age because he's going to turn older than 18 next year. Ryan Mon probably just aged out, but like there are players to that point who could be playing professionally, but they are still in that age. What sounds like to me a designation the PDGA is allowed, which is to play underneath as long as you're under that age. And I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mats.
Sorry. That's the way European Championship is every second year.
Okay.
So the best could play, even the under 18. So that's the role model we have used.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I heard you mention January 10th. I heard it in the press conference. I heard it here this evening. So if I'm a player and I'm a 16-year-old listening to this, because they do, and they're like, I want to know more about it, when and where do they get more? Because right now the website looks great, but I'm not getting a lot of detail. So you're keeping us hanging.
Yeah.
So is that what we do? We wait for that date, or what should they do?
Yes.
And they should give you their email address, I assume.
Yes. Yes, for sure. And I will go ahead and say on the North American side, on January 10th, we're going to use that as the day to announce all of our qualifiers. And I've got qualifiers lined up in Canada, along the West Coast, in the center, along the East Coast. There's about 10 to 12 of them right now. And I'm very excited about the diversity of regions that are represented. I would say that 90% of disc golfers will have a regional within 4 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, on that graphic on that map looked pretty cool to be pulling from all over like that, including North America, as you said. So,
and I will be in next time.
I want to close on one last thing, which was sort of an extra carrot that I learned about, and I said, okay, I really want to do this now. The 2025 season, as Mott said, is sort of the test when we're going to make sure that everything runs correctly. It will be a premier event, but it doesn't have any history yet. In 2026, it'll be the full deal, and then in 2027, the roles of the Åland Open and the Maple Hill event will switch. And what I mean is that the Åland Open will move up to June, and the winners of that event will qualify to come to the Maple Hill event in September. And the Maple Hill event will then be the premier junior event of this future disc golf series. And then in 2028, it would flip back, and every other year, people in Europe would have an opportunity to come to North America, and the next year North America would have an opportunity to go to Europe. And China gets to travel to both. So that arguably they get the best of all worlds.
That will be so inconvenient for my junior disc golfers in my family to play at Maple Hill. I mean, super inconvenient. We're dreading the drive, Steve.
Well,
you might have to go. You might have to drive an hour or two to qualify. But
I was just gonna say, man, we'll figure that out. I'll host one. No.
Well, I will say to echo, so Mott's really great work. Matt and I have done, as he mentioned, junior focused work here before, and just really thankful to you. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of juniors who will make a lifetime memory, even if they don't come out on top and play in the European Open, etc. Right. This is it's a big deal for a lot of these players for a sport we love. And I know how hard the work is, even pulling together a press conference and everything else you've done. So thank you for that, Motts. Steve, thank you for jumping in and joining them in this effort. I think we're going to transition off of this topic. And Steve, we have another interview coming, but I know you've got a couple things to say.
Dun. So we have 2 minutes.
If this is when we toss it to you.
Yeah.
Tell us what's on your mind. And the topics are probably either putting 2, which I know you've got lots of stuff, stats wise, etc. But then the other maybe is the fact that we're talking about tours, and you have some experience of starting a tour also. So anyway,
I do. We had a little baseball card tour that I had going on in my, when I was growing up. That was, I didn't actually have that. I was a joke. But regarding the Circle 2 movement, I've heard a little bit about this, and that's what you guys were talking about right before I came on. And I have a small platform here. No offense, staggered stance.
That's all right. We know where we sit.
But in my opinion, if you move it back to Circle 2, you're going to have the exact same problem. It's still hard to tell if a jump putt is done correctly or not. And if you move it to Circle 3, it's still hard to tell. And if you move it to the fairway, it's still hard. Whatever you do, it's hard to tell. In my opinion, you should not be allowed to follow through past July unless you're on the tee. And that's it. In traditional golf, on the tee, you can use a literal tee and raise your ball up. You don't get to do that anywhere else. In disc golf, I think we should have the same kind of consideration. If you're on the tee, there is something extra. You get to follow through. You can give it everything you got. But anywhere else on the course, sorry, you can't follow through past July. You've got to figure out how to throw without doing that.
All right. Well, we'll debate the merits of that opinion later, but that's awesome.
Thank you. My 2 cents. And then I did see an announcement about GK Pro. I think they said they're hanging up their cleats, but then they're also making this other thing called the Go Throw Tour.
Go Throw as a brand, and then there's a tour as part of that.
Okay, so the Go Throw Tour. And a lot of people have reached out to me and said, Steve, what do you think of this? And I've got to say, I am very, very excited. I checked out all their dates, and they did a very good job of fitting in between the Pro Tour dates. And then the more people that watch disc golf, the more money that flows into disc golf tournaments, and the better the stage is for the touring pros. 100%. I am really, really excited about what these guys are building. I'm excited that they say we have enough of an audience already. We can make a go of this. So the more tours, the better. Bring it on. If you want to start a regional tour in New England, let's do that. If you want to start one in the Southwest, please do that. The more and encourage people to come watch. That's the key. Encourage people to come watch. The more people that watch, the better disc golf's going to be.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Spoken like a true entrepreneur at heart, Steve, which I think you are. At least that's my perspective. So yeah, again, thank you, Steve. Motts, not wanting to rush you off, reach back out because we'll bring you back on when the time sounds right.
At 3 a.m.
Pay attention to the details. Yeah, Motts, thank you for staying up. I don't know if you're normally up at 2 and 3 a.m., but I appreciate it. And people will listen to this at all hours because, we have a lot of after listeners. So people will be picking this up. So thank you again.
Thank you to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys very much.
All right,
Much.
thank you.
Thanks, Stephen Motz.
Yeah, we'll talk to you another time, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, hitting lots of buttons here. That being said, we got our next guest already lined up. I don't know if we'll take Josh, if you're jotting notes down, but Steve points are at least worth talking about at some point in this offseason. That being said, we had an episode where with Simon, I think it was with Simon on.
It was Simon.
Steve
I was
actually
just about to
talked
bring
about
that
this. Talked
Yes.
about this
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
So anyways,
I remember
that's
that.
interesting. But without further ado, we already have lined up. We might as well bring him in, not keep him there all night. Jeff Spring, everybody, CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Let's see if I can hit my buttons right here. I think I did.
That's why I like my job. I don't have any buttons to hit.
I'm hitting like 17. Oop, I have the wrong up. So let's try this one. There we go.
Yeah, Jeff could have just been sitting around relaxing all night until we bothered him.
Not quite, but happy to join you guys. Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely.
good.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're not bored just sitting around twiddling your fingers in the off season?
It's off-season.
Not always. You got to get some time in for R&R, but this off season has been a busy one so far.
Okay.
Very good.
Well, we really appreciate the fact that you'd consider coming on the show. Generally what's going on in the disc golf world. I talked to you a little bit prior to the show, and that's how we were able to get this lined up. There's a lot of conversation going on, and immediately, right, even in our chat tonight, our live chat, our live listeners, just like talking about this is all interesting, what's going on in the disc golf world. So first and foremost, you just heard a little bit of Steve's reaction or response to the tour. I saw a chat immediately come in and said, would you feel the same, Steve, if you were still running the Pro Tour? And so we kind of now just brought you in, and I didn't ask Steve that, but you are a big part of running the Pro Tour, and I know it's the Players
Running the
Tour,
Pro Tour.
but at the same time, like, what's your general reaction to that? What did you think?
Well, I actually didn't catch much of it, so you're gonna have to maybe.
He just spoke like a good
I
entrepreneur.
got the end, but you maybe frame it up for me.
He just
Framing
wants
it
to
up.
grow the sport.
He says, great, grow the sport, bring friends, go watch. We need more disc golf. We can grow a bigger, better thing.
Yeah, that
so
was his take.
it's kind of his take. So
Okay, in regards. Sorry.
To the new tour
regards
that
to
was
what?
announced, the Go Throw Tour, GK Pro
Oh, the Go Through
rebranding.
Tour. Okay, yeah. I feel the same way that it sounds like Steve was sharing. We know the GK boys really well. They have worked with us for years. They're working with us next year. Still same plans as always. So I know that they've rebranded some stuff. We found that out. I think the same time probably the rest of the disc golf world did, which I think was over the weekend. But the plans I think are like somewhere in between 6 and 8 skins matches at DGPT events. I checking out their schedule next year. It looks similar to this year. So I think they were at a lot of those same locations. It's exciting to hear that they're going to do a series. When we stopped doing the Silver Series, it was in large part due to response to the touring pros, where they said, hey, your schedule's grueling, and same with us. I was on the road, I think for like Steve before me, maybe like 9 months in an RV, right? So that gets to be hard, and if you're playing every single weekend, it gets to be a grind. So opening up a few off weekends has been strategic for us, and for based on player feedback. But disc golf, there's no off days really, for a growing sport and people that want to, earn a living. So, I think that we see, some of the events, that are there, we're very close to Kale and Odie, who run the Preserve. They're running the Majestic at their property. And we even consider getting that involved this year. But we want nothing but the best for a lot of those partners. We're trying to work with Kayak Point in the past. That's a great event. So I didn't hear all of Steve's sentiment, but we're close to those guys. They always have been innovators and want to build a subculture around the tour, and that's worked well, and it's worked well for the tour as in the past with GK Skins. We worked together on that. Now Go Throw. So we're excited to release those events. And, if players are looking, and a lot of players are, to, have new opportunities off tour. I think this is a great way for players to go get that.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds to me like G, and I'm going to refer to them right now, not disrespectfully, as GK Pro. I'll probably say it's the whole Twitter X thing right now. So would you?
No, I'm not sure if they. I don't think that they would be offended.
Okay, good. So
transitions,
yeah.
But that was their moniker even last year, so
Okay.
it's not that far.
Okay.
Off.
So I'll say GK Pro, Go Throw. We know what we're talking about here. So can we just squash this? They were not kicked off tour. Like their whole like saying goodbye kind of led people maybe down a dramatic tunnel, if you will. But that was not the reality here. They're exploring other opportunity as well as continuing with the Pro Tour.
Yeah. Unless there's something I don't know, but even last week, our teams were in contact getting the 2025 schedule lined up. We usually have 2 or 3 of their shooters working for Disc Golf Network, and then like I said, the skins matches that are a hit. They do those, off tour nearby sometimes during tour weeks, but also at our venues. And so, as when I looked at the schedule over the weekend, they've got one lined up for the GMC that I'm excited about. So we'll be promoting that together.
Cool. So that's good. Good to hear from you. So, and then it comes to, you talked a little bit about the tour. You talked about players having the excitement of being able to seek other opportunities outside of the tour, for their brands and the things that they would like to accomplish. And so can we also say that the Pro Tour, there was discussion, and I even brought it up. I'll put it out there. I brought it up. Some players or a player came and talked to me about it a few weeks ago, the possibility that there might have been a quote clause that existed in some player agreement where it said along the lines of, hey, if there's scheduling conflicts and it's a non-Pro Tour event, non-PDGA, media, all this kind of thing tied to it, more or less it sounded like, hey, maybe players that are tour card holders cannot play other events. That is not the case here, right? And maybe you can offer some clarity on where that discussion came from.
Yeah, I'm happy to offer some clarity. First, to clarify, this is not something that we're moving forward with in 2025. Second, it wasn't designed to limit players from playing other events at all. There was a proposal that basically said that if there was non-PDGA media going on, that you would not be able to do that on a week where a tour event was live. And, just to speak to that type of discussion going on, this was really in discussion with some players, that had concerns, but also with event teams and other stakeholders. If you can imagine, putting an event together is a big deal for our event teams, our local organizing committees like Steve and MVP. And, if there are a number of players that are not showing up to some of the events, these are multi-year, year-round like fundraising efforts. And as a tour, we try to have a responsibility to our event teams and even the players that show up week in, week out, to make sure that, we have great fields and that the fields are there. And this isn't dissimilar in concept to many other sports, right? That have some rules around their media and other conflict. And so, as we go forward in future years, and I'm sure it's something that we'll discuss, but it wasn't designed to stop players from playing any event that they want to at all. It was designed, to think about event teams, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're working on fundraising to put on very, complex and growing events, and to protect their interests and the interests of the players that are playing week in and week out on the tour. But again, for clarity, we're not moving forward with this. It was initially part of a tour card program, but it never was distributed in any agreements. So just hopefully that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I was just going to say, it's interesting that we speculate about it. That's because it was speculation or rumors. Things start going around. We hear from players that this was a discussion at some point, but nothing ever came from it. And that's what we're hearing now. So the reality is, if we want to keep talking about that, it would just be to say, hey, would this ever happen in the future? And it would just be continuing the conversation, but not saying, hey, it's happening. Let's debate the merits of that. That's not the case. So thank you for filling
it was media focused, right? So, and that hopefully makes sense to folks that have any, event production background, especially when you're talking about, year round efforts to to put on the biggest stage. I mean, that's our mission, put the biggest stage out there for the best players in the world and transmit that story to fans. And, for our event teams, they're big stakeholders. And, think about the, OTB crew and, Waco crew, any of the teams that are putting, all their blood, sweat, and tears into events. So, I think that the discussion is good to have. And I think that in future years, who knows, it could become a reality, but, we're not moving forward with it this year. And, we take a lot of feedback and we are nimble and make adjustments. So you've got a players council that leads the players. And when we hear feedback from them, we take it very seriously and are quick to make adjustments to make sure that if we can, we'll listen to, any and all feedback, really. So in this case, it seems like the discussion is good to have. Implementation's premature.
I'm glad you, Nick, I'll let you say it. I'm glad you brought up that part about the Players Council, because when you say we, that is influenced in part by this Players Council. And so I'm sure anything that comes along is going to be at the recommendation or the non-recommendation of something would come from the Players Council. And you guys are nimble. We've seen that. Nick, what did you got?
I was going to say, so like everyone on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, everything like that is going to just try to dissect everything that we're saying tonight, right? Like that's the whole point of bringing Jeff on, to try to clarify situations and the rumor mills that are going on. So I guess in clarification, and I'm just throwing out an example, if I'm trying to understand this, if a DGPT event, let's say, the Florida Open, our tournament at Olympus, let's say that's happening February 28th, March 1st, March 2nd. And I'm just throwing this out as an example, like I said, if Big Money Skins was happening and they were taking production, it's a non-PDGA event, it's media that's going to them, is that kind of what you're talking about, where that would be the competing factor?
Well, first of all, it had nothing to do with the Go Throw, GK, skins at all.
Just throwing out, for example, just because it was a big event.
And this clause was just more, but yes, basically what you're saying is like people can go play. The clause that was proposed was people could play in that, right? But if there's a live competing event, going on and there's media going on, it would be to protect like an event team like yourself.
Yes,
actually, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I want to clarify it again. I threw out Big Money Skins because it was a big event last year. That was a non-PDGA. Nothing against, Eagles Crossing, anything like that. Because I sympathize with the Pro Tour and Jeff kind of on the stance of the amount of work that we did with Corns and his crew last year or this past year, and then Heinold and his team this year going into the 2025 season is, we want to make the best spectacle of an event. One of the things that we ask is I want the Pro Tour to say it's the easiest event going to Olympus every year, setting up and breaking down, and it's a wonderful event. I know the time and effort that goes into that, but we also, like, for me as, a groundskeeper there, is I do want the best players to play the course that we spent all year working on. And so I'm in total sympathy and agreement with all that. So
I guess, of course, the contrarian perspective that's out there is it feels like, and I don't think you've stated this, Jeff, so these are my words, but like, if there's competition, we're going to squash it, right? And that's not what you've articulated here. And in fact, even with Go Throw, we've just kind of articulated it's like, to maybe Steve's comments, which you didn't quite hear, but it's like more disc golf, more opportunities to compete for players who want to is a good thing. So like, I guess that's probably where some people who are more cynical feel like that could be the take. I don't know how to react to those voices out there.
Sure. Yeah. What I would say is that, of course, while I agree with what Steve stated and what Nick stated, and, it's certainly not the intent, to squash competition. For instance, we will compete with competition. I don't think that there is currently direct competition, but if there was, our approach would be to outcompete it, and try to make sure that the Disc Golf Pro Tour was the best option. Now, in regards to, situations where, an event has, as we've discussed, put in a lot of time, energy, and effort, and let's just say a handful of players, take a different opportunity to compete against it. We're going to do what we can, in the future to make sure that we are keeping the best pros and the best players and the best stage, where, all the stakeholders that have helped grow the tour is. But we also understand that maybe that's out of our control at certain times. And there's going to be a lot of different advents of different entities and efforts throughout the years. And we hope to stay steady and strong and be the place that the best players in the world continue to want to play like they have for about 10 years starting next year. But we have to, keep earning that, keep proving that year after year. And, last year we had a highest added cash per event that we've ever had in North America. Almost 70K per event on average, not quite, but we're trying to keep those purses up and keep growing them. And it's all in service of that mission of presenting, the best stage, the biggest stage to our fans, the best players in the world. So it's really a stance of like, we would, obviously try to outcompete. But we're also considering what do we do? What's smart in terms of, our partners and our stakeholders, whether they're the players or the event teams.
Yeah. There's one other thing that's been going around a little bit, and I'm going to let you offer some clarity on, and it's the idea of maybe delayed payouts. Now, I know at a local level, sometimes that's just cash in an envelope, right? If I play my local CT or Flex Start, I'm sure once you start getting up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, that looks a lot different. And I have no idea how that works, frankly, except that people would expect a payment. You've probably heard some of the reactions, and I'll say it sounds like complaints, maybe most notably, and I didn't know if I'd call him out or not, but Drew Gibson just dropped a video a day or two ago. You don't have to respond directly about that, but just implying that people are getting frustrated with payouts, and the way that they happen and delays, and the PDGA has a guideline for how long before payouts. Do you have any response to that and the reaction to maybe even someone like Drew calling out the Pro Tour?
Yeah, the truth is, over the course of the season, there are a few payouts that have been delayed, and that's not okay. That's 100% on us, regardless of the reason behind it. So, we're committed to ensuring that we're 100% going forward. And that's what I would say.
Okay.
I understand any frustration there, but we're addressing it and making sure that over the course of the season, we're 100%. So,
is it fair to dig in at all there and just ask things that might cause delays to happen? I mean, so Nick will sometimes be like, hey, my PayPal won't let me send so much money, or whatever it might be connected to my bank. I don't know what it runs into at the Pro Tour level, what might cause those delays.
Yeah, well, I won't get into, the nitty gritty details, but what I can say is that over the course of the season, we have over 30 event weekends that deliver over $2 million to the players over 2 continents and 6 countries, and we have worked really hard to make sure that our administrative systems, the event teams, and the players themselves are registered, working in those systems that dovetail and get payouts out on time and consistently. But I'm prioritizing an effort this offseason to make sure that in the few cases across the season that there are delays, that just doesn't happen for any reason. But we've grown quickly, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we keep up with that growth.
Awesome.
So the follow up just on that. So it sounds you're saying it's more logistics, administration, coordination of a complex payout environment, not Pro Tour cash flow problems.
Yeah, that's right. And we just that said, whatever reason it is on us, and we're focused on remedying any delay, and we try to be in good communication if there is a delay, and let players know what to do if they need to fix registration. Make sure we're in communication with events, and make sure that we know all appropriate tax laws and complications with overseas events. And I'm confident, we're prioritizing it over the offseason to make sure that, this is just not an issue for anyone, anytime, any event.
And let me say this, because it could be viewed as me calling out Drew Gibson. I was using it more for context of possibly where some of this question is also coming from. But Drew did also say, and whether it was a discussion with you or somebody else on staff, or he said that he did have discussion or is aware of things being remedied and looked into in advance. So
okay.
At least that's being put out there. I want to also share that based off of the response.
I would say that Drew, people think he has hot takes, but I think a lot of the times he's just speaking what he feels to be true. And I think you got to respect him for that. And, you know, I've had many conversations with Drew, and you know, we're still talking. So
Great.
That's it.
Great. No, it was just sharing
Very
it for
cool.
the context. And yeah, and he did say that side of it. So I wanted to make sure I shared that as well. I'm trying to think here. The Players Council, you had mentioned that a few times. I don't know if there's anything that's public with that or not public with that. It sounds interesting to me. Were these players voted in by other players, or was this some hand selection or volunteer?
Yeah, this goes back to I think 2021 was implemented around the time that a tour card became a real thing that we were working on and putting benefits to. And that came along with Disc Golf Strong coming on board and providing, you know, telehealth and player performance support and assistance, and, you know, free tickets, free DGN, a lot of the benefits that you know, we're implementing for players on tour. We also felt like it's a tour card's right to have representation. And so, you know, maybe we do need to publicize this a little bit more. But over the last, you know, 4 years, there's been a cycle of players that have represented tour card holders. They do get voted in on a cycle. And they are, you know, working on policies. You know, one thing that they worked on 2 years ago was the stance rule. I think if you guys remember, the stance rule had changed and you couldn't clear the run up behind your lie. And, you know, it was actually through their effort to clarify, you know, their stance through the council and our support behind it that gave the feedback to the PDGA to make that rule change. They're also working on some tweaks on excessive time. You know, they're also working on a number of different topics. So really what we do is we meet monthly. We try to work in between. It's a great group of players. I think that, you know, it's growing in terms of involvement. It's kind of a big job if you're touring all year to keep up with everything and offer, you know, feedback. But the current group's been doing a great job, the most engaged group we've ever had. And I think that through the discussion this offseason will only, you know, get more people aware. I think, like, for instance, last year, there's only 30% of tour card holders actually voted. And so I bet we're going to have over 50% this year that are voting. And, you know, we do give them, you know, a lot of responsibility on many topics. And the conversation this offseason has been, how do we codify that? How do we make sure that they have, you know, more power in certain areas to make calls? I think one of the things coming up is a reformat of the point system, and that's entirely in their hands. You know, and a couple other policies. You know, we want this entity, the Players Council, to really shape the future of a lot of the policies on tour. So basically saying to the players, you know, what is it that you want for your own tour, and as much as we can, you know, in regards to, like, also running a business that's got to be supportive of the tour, we're going to hand them the reins on many issues. And I think that over the years we've kind of stepped up, but we're continuing to see that grow.
Okay, one other thing, and the player or players, actually multiple, that have mentioned this to me. At least, the very least, they're hearing this. The idea, and they haven't used the word protest, but registration for the 2025 Disc Golf Pro Tour card is open. It is public to see this information over at Disc Golf Scene. And I see 11 MPO registered, 10 FPO registered so far. And I know there's tiered registration pricing, and it will increase with price as it goes on. I asked this question because one of these players that I talked to mentioned that they were kind of waiting to sign up due to the player conduct. Now, the reason I bring the, or player conduct, code of conduct, if you will, player code of conduct. I bring this up because you just talked about the Players Council, and my understanding would be that the Players Council would be pretty involved with the Players Code of Conduct. Yet the player agreement that's being asked to be signed right now is saying, hey, you agree to abide by the Players Code of Conduct. Is the Players Code of Conduct complete in its final form where a player should feel totally comfortable signing the agreement? Or is there something still to come down the pipe on that?
Yeah, great question. The code of conduct and any related fine system, for instance, are to be determined by the Players Council. They've been we have a player tour card program and also an agreement. In the agreement, there's some in the program, there's some placeholders that speak to the tour council developing that. It's not moving forward in the agreement. So if the Players Council decides to make a code of conduct and implement any fine system, we're going to leave that in the hands of the players, really. So there's nothing that players need to worry about there. I think that you're right. Maybe we've taken some questions about that. We just work to clarify those and assure players that there's nothing that they need to worry about there, and that if there will be a code of conduct or any fine system, it's going to be determined by their representatives on the player council and implemented with plenty of line of sight there. I will note that I think that this stemmed actually from discussions, and because it's been a placeholder in the tour card program for a couple of years. And I think that eventually there will be some progress here. But if you look at the disciplinary structure for the PDGA, and we've talked to the PDGA, I don't think I'm putting them on blast at all, but it is designed for all PDGA events, right? And so when you look at something like the European Open suspension of Nico that stemmed from that moment, there's a lot of player feedback at that time saying that we need intermediary discipline, where the Pro Tour needs to implement a code of conduct, they need to implement fines, hence where these placeholders came from, right? And then instead of jumping right to 9-month suspension and taking someone's livelihood off the table, right? Because if you're an AM, maybe that is the right punishment. But if you're a pro, probably not, and this needs to dovetail in with the PDGA. And right now, the only disciplinary system that is in place is the PDGA disciplinary system. So this is kind of an agenda item that's kind of languished for a year or two, honestly. I feel like the PDGA is open and willing, but they need to hear a proposal. And I feel like the players are interested, but, we need to, kind of define what that code of conduct and fines are, because, the next time something happens and, famously Bradley Williams, I think, was suspended for a year, in both of these occurrences, it probably wasn't the right call. So if we're able to implement a code of conduct and fine system, I think that the PDGA would in turn be open to saying, hey, we're going to work with the tour. We're going to work with the Players Council to say, we're not going to just jump to a really long suspension. So we're not asking anyone to commit to any, secret code of conduct or, fine system that they're not aware of. And we're working to clarify that with players, which is important. But I think that knowing the genesis of this as like a player derived, idea is hopefully helpful as well, because I think it makes sense, but I also want the players to drive forward. If they said as a group, this is what we want our code of conduct and our fine system to be, and this is how we want it to dovetail in with the PDGA disciplinary system, all I would say is great, I'll help you implement it, but we're not quite there yet. I think we will get there. And in the meantime, it's important to clarify.
Yeah. And then the last follow-up to that as we wrap this up is, you're not concerned then with the players' registration rate to this point, 20 players out of 145 possible?
No. In fact, the flurry of registrations came, probably the last week of December last year and into January. And actually, we're in touch with a couple of teams, that actually pay players event fees as well as their tour card fees, which is, I think, up until this year, been actually the majority, but that may start changing. So, and some of them, due to, kind of their fiscal planning, want to do it in the preceding year. So we've already been in touch with them. We know that comes in January. We have incentivized folks by discounting the tour card for anybody that wants to sign up early, but we've taken feedback on that. So we've changed that. We pushed that discount out a little bit so people have time. And also the reality though is this year is that from our feedback from players that there's not as much lucrative opportunity from manufacturing sponsors. And so we're kind of talking to individual players, making plans with them. In some cases, we work with them on financial assistance in order to make sure that they're able to participate. I think that this year it would make a lot of sense for it to be slightly slower, but at the same time, this is very similar to the pace of past years. And there's also the need here to clarify, listen to players, make sure that any adjustments are communicated so that they feel comfortable to move forward. And that process is kind of going on right now. So, I think we're on pace, and we'll see registration pick up in the next few weeks, and as we clarify and make sure players don't have any other questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Anybody
I think
else?
that's a great
Josh,
point.
Nick?
I'll just ask kind of one, maybe this is closing. We've got lots of topics tonight, Jeff. It's awesome. Is obviously with the pressures in the market, you kind of acknowledged it. It's kind of really well known. We're seeing slight adjustments. Do you think we as fans of the Pro Tour are going to see any noticeable differences on the tour in any aspect? I'm talking media, on course, player participation, like just are you projecting anything that you could share with us that you think may be different, or are you going to weather this year and just see where it goes and who knows?
Well, the only differences that I can think of are exciting things that we want to debut and bring on this year, whether it's new partners, kind of the European swing, having the first Worlds, and last year we had record European viewership and subscribers, along with record FPO viewership as well. I mean, the FPO division is soaring right now, and there's even interest in individual advertisers in FPO. So that's the main thing that comes to mind. I think on the topic that you're getting at, I think that we'll see players have to piece it together. It seems like I've heard a few open bags, but I can tell you that to that concern, we've actually had more exemption applications for tour cards than we ever have. And we're actually greenlighting a couple more than normal because players do want to get their tour card and they want to get into the events. It's the main way to get into Disc Golf Pro Tour events. And we had a few events fill with tour card holders last year. And at this point, I think that we'll have a few more fill. But we'll see. I think that the financial pressures, have been a little bit more challenging this year, as you noted. But I've heard good things in the market as well. Some manufacturers and partners having, better holiday sales than expected. And, I think there's ups and downs right now with where the industry is. But we expect, basically a pretty standard year. One thing that we're working on next off season is to announce, an exhibition schedule that has some live events, let's say in November and December and January, to bring a little bit more flavor to the off season for us to have a few live events. We're excited to announce that exhibition schedule in early January, and we think that the fans will be excited. But yeah, we want to lean into what we're hearing from the fans, what's going to be fun, have another great competitive season. And I think the highlight has got to be, when I look ahead, that Worlds will be international for the first time ever.
Yeah, it's tempted me to travel for it. I don't know if it's going to happen just because you've got lots of dynamics, but that is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, literally, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm like, we could talk for another hour or two because there's lots of, and Jeff, as the CEO of the Pro Tour, you've got an interesting perspective for us, right? I mean, you're living and breathing and running the tour, all the good, all the challenges, ups and downs. So I thank you for carving out a decent chunk of time here on a Monday evening. I'm sure a couple of these clips will circulate the internet and people will have their perspective on it, but I think you also help provide some clarification on some of the hot topics. So yeah, thankful for your time.
Thank you very much.
Happy to help clarify. Thanks for having me on as always. And let's Let's have a great 2025.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right around the corner. Yes. Happy holidays, all of that. January is almost here.
We'll see you for the next round of hot takes that'll inevitably come out in a month.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Peace
Thank
out,
you again,
Jeff.
Jeff.
See you
Thank
later,
you.
Jeff.
We'll see you around.
All right. We should now call this the CEO show because
Yeah, right. No kidding.
back to back, Jeff Spring, running into. I wish I had my patriotic music lined up because we've got a U.S. champ, newly crowned champion. I don't know if that's the right word. We'll call it CEO of Prodigy Discs. So let's go ahead and bring in everybody. Will Schusterick. I think I've got all the buttons here. Let's try hit this one. Boom. Will Schusterick. Welcome to the show, Will. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Let's go.
It is so awesome to have you, man. I'm glad I started, with some form of contact years ago, because when I hear that Will Schusterick is now the CEO of Prodigy, I go, hold on, I think I've got his phone number in here somewhere. I send you a text and you're like, yeah, I'll come on. So we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
So Josh, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, Will, nice to meet you. I'm Matt's brother, so appreciate you taking the time. I don't think Matt already kind of teed it up, but we need any real introduction. We definitely have some questions, but I want to start with something just simple. So recently named CEO of Prodigy. You've been with them a long time. We know a lot of the history of that company, your history in the sport, et cetera, et cetera. But just how did this come about? And kind of like, is this a big transition for you to take CEO role, or has this been something you kind of been working towards and kind of was the next natural step? Let us know a little bit how you ended up in this seat.
Yeah, I would say it was more of the second one. I have kind of been taking on a lot of the responsibilities and duties at the Prodigy warehouse for the last couple of years now. It really kind of went back to 2017 whenever my wife and I moved to Dalton, and we purchased a warehouse here that was much larger than our other fulfillment center that we had down in Woodstock, and was getting out of just a playing career and traveling full time, as you guys know, to more creating a family, really my life after being a touring professional disc golfer. And came in obviously with a lot of ties and connections into the disc golf world. I was already doing a lot of the sales side, contacting dealers, contacting events, that kind of stuff, to picking up more, I guess you could say, sales reps, and then managing the sales team, picking up the responsibility of planning production, having pieces of marketing, planning releases, doing all of that stuff. And then you add on, really a lot of planning and a lot of talking about what we're doing throughout the year to, just picking up the responsibilities to what I'm currently doing.
Awesome. So does it feel like, I'll say congratulations, because a CEO opportunity is pretty awesome. Whether it's a small startup or a major firm, you're getting the opportunity to make the executive decisions and run a company. So congratulations on that. But given that kind of growth and that history you just kind of went through, does this feel like a big step for you? And by the way, my follow-on question, I'm going to go ahead and ask you this: what are some of your top priorities now that you're quote unquote officially in the role?
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. I have felt like it was gonna kind of eventually be coming up, with the position that I was in, just constantly being there. I feel like, it was almost like a, 10 years in the making type thing, but no, I'm excited about it. There's not like major changes. There's a lot of really low hanging fruit things that I think would be really cool for us to do just as a company. And I am excited to be really the face of the person that does have to make those executive decisions. Even though we have a full team of people, it's not just me behind the curtain of making decisions. I think, a lot of people kind of question like who is making the decisions, doing this, and deciding on what Prodigy does as a company, and whether it's popular or not popular. It does kind of come down to not ultimately what my decision is, but kind of as a small group collectively talking about deciding the best direction for the company. So no, I'm excited about it. There's not anything specific. Like I said, there's some low hanging fruit stuff that I do think we can do as a company. On Friday last week, we had a Shop the Warehouse where we actually opened up our doors and people were able to come in and shop discs off of the racks, which is the first time any type of public have been able to come in and go through the
That's cool.
near 500,000 discs that we have in the warehouse. And it was really cool just to connect with people, and people can see what we're all about. It's really funny. People think we're this massive, crazy big company, and then people also think that we're like a few people in a garage shipping out discs. And so it's good just to connect with people. People drove in from Illinois, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky. Like, it was just awesome to meet. I think we had over 120 people that came to the warehouse that day, shop through the disc, and they're like, wow, this is actually what you guys do. Like, this gives me a perception of who I'm supporting, what you guys do on a daily basis, all the orders, where the discs are coming from and being manufactured. And so, for me, I want people to know what Prodigy is, who Prodigy is behind the curtain, what we stand for. And I think the communication side on that part of it can go a really long way, just with the perception of what we are.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I will be curious to see what a lot of that low-hanging fruit may be. I'm curious, top priorities for the brand. Okay. And like, here's just some ideas to stimulate. Like, obviously product is primarily why Prodigy exists, right? Your discs, etc. But what about like market reach, or even marketing, or is it sponsoring players, or is it events? And then also maybe like US versus Europe. Just again, you've already been part of the company, so this is not new topics for you, but just curious again, really, I'm going to say, I think in many ways, Will, you've already been the face of Prodigy, but now the CEO of Prodigy. Like, is there anywhere that you're particularly focused based on some of those things I mentioned?
Yeah, and not to be so broad, but there's no stone that needs to be left unturned. Everything that you just mentioned is really important and top priority when it comes to not just sponsoring events, but getting distant players back. That's a big deal. We work with a lot of different tournaments throughout the year. And to be honest, any school that has nearly every single school that has messaged in, we have nearly given or severely discounted product for schools that actually have teams at their schools looking to promote disc golf. And, there's a lot of marketing efforts that say, rising tide raises all ships. It's not really about just them buying your product, but it's about growing the sport and getting people to just play disc golf, just period, because that really gets more of the return customer and the lifelong customer than just somebody looking to just buy a disc. And when it comes to, international stuff, Canada is actually a spot that we've been pushing really hard, and our Canada side has been growing a lot, and we've been pushing really hard. We have a fulfillment center already that's out of Toronto. We have a really good team there. We have several people that are working really hard up in the Canada area. Our brand's growing a lot in Canada, and that's something that we've been pushing hard already last year. Our European partners are amazing, and that, as you guys already know, is somewhere that disc golf is just taken off like crazy, and it will continue with Worlds coming up there next year. So there's going to be a lot of excitement of disc golf coming up, and so working with those guys, working with the Canada team, we've got an amazing marketing, production, fulfillment team already that's in Dalton that is just working in synchronizing on everything to make the best. Not the best effort, but just the best impact across globally.
Cool. Oh, that's fun to hear that expansion. I didn't really know that you were working that much in Canada, so that's great. People are going to ask, and so I will ask, what about product quality? Obviously, this is, I don't know how I feel about it, because things always, like, once somebody latches on to a particular perspective, it gets kind of echoed throughout the ecosystem. But like, whether it be flashing on a disc or how these discs age or consistency, that's something, again, because the core part of your business is the product. Anything you're wanting to dig in there as a CEO?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is priority number one. We talk about it every day, about the quality and what is quality. Like, define what quality is as a team. We need to have a definition of what is good, what is bad, what are we going to be acceptable, what are we going to be accepting of, and what do we want to get out the door type deal. And in the past, we've kind of slid some stuff out the door, and we've actually did not have an answer for some of the stuff, like some of our discs that had chalk that came out of the plastic. And so, within the last 12 months, we have actually detailed down directly about what exactly is the source of why did that actually happen, what's going on with it, why did it happen to some in certain climates. And so we have pinpointed exactly what it is. We don't have that problem anymore with any of our discs, which is a really big deal for us internally and then and out there in the world. But honestly, a product is going to be about the consistency and how long you can make an amazing product over several years or months. It's not something that we can we have to make a daily effort, but in the long term, it's going to reap the benefits. You're not going to be able to change the perception of your brand in one day. You have to have a consistent effort every single day whenever you come in and you go to work, that whatever product you're making, whatever orders you have, being fulfilled on time, the customer service, the sales, the product, everything has to be top notch every day. And that really gives dividends throughout the months and years of you being a company. You're not going to be able to walk in next week and be able to change everybody's perception that does or does not like your brand to something completely different. It really is from the first day you walk in, you have to make that conscious effort of, we're going to make top of the line quality product, and we're not going to let anything out the door unless we think this is 100% the best quality we want to be out there.
Awesome. Well, we have somebody in the live chat who says they got 200 discs for an event and there was no flashing and they had a smile on their face. So maybe that's one example to your point, but like over time, right? You can kind of
over time. Sure. Exactly.
That's great. So I think I should have the details here, but I think it was earlier this year that Kale on social media expressed some frustration just in kind of these pressures of like people's opinions and perspectives on discs, but yet like you have world champions literally throwing Prodigy discs, and obviously the quality has proved itself. When I say quality, I mean the overall right production in your line. Do you share any of that sentiment at just the frustrations, but yet literally I guess you could argue and say, look at Prodigy's resume? Is that something that ever, like, how does that sit with you as a CEO, hearing a lot of that social media backlash, but knowing you have,
honestly, it's really easy. It is really easy to sit around and listen to the comments. And I think it's really important to listen to the crowd of what your fans are saying and what people are saying about your product. But at the end of the day, it really is what actions are going to speak louder than anything you can type and respond to somebody online. It's really easy to go on there and respond, no, You're talking about a disc that was made 6 years ago. You're talking about a second quality product that you got handed in from Play Against Sports. Like you can't go around and comment back to everybody, but you can make a conscious effort, just like I was saying, to make the best quality product that goes out. You can choose as soon as you walk in the door, like, hey, anything that goes out the door is going to be 100% the top quality, and we're going to only be acceptable of the best discs that walk out this door. I used to get really caught up in that kind of stuff more when I had, I would say, less responsibilities, maybe less stuff to do, that I really just wanted everybody to love and see Prodigy the same way that I did. But, I've learned quickly that actions do speak louder than words when it comes to that kind of stuff, like production quality of product, all that kind of stuff. And so when you can take your efforts of responding to people and whether it's good or bad in your response and turn that into time to take action on it, then you have so much more time and you get way better of a response. Like I said, it's not an immediate response from somebody. If you make 1,000 good discs and it's like, hey, these are the 1,000 good discs. Like, no, you have to do it every single day whenever you come in the building, and every disc that goes out the door for several years are what you're going to be judged on in 18 months after that. And so the discs that we made 12 to 18 months ago are kind of what we're being judged on right now, because that's kind of the populace that is out there. Like that's kind of the circle and range. Like it's really easy to get discs that we made yesterday through certain partners, but sometimes it just creates a there has to be the ripple effect. It gets to a certain point where you have to get product out there for a long time to really change that perception. It's not a once a day type of deal.
Yeah, that's it's a great perspective. You talked about over time kind of changing, and it's like I think you get a different perspective when you start getting different roles and different angles, and it's great to hear you kind of mention that. So I want to just ask maybe like two more slight questions here, more from a business standpoint. So you're obviously announced as the new CEO. So did the prior CEO move on? That's one question. I mean, I guess the answer is obviously yes, but there was nothing about that. No, I know, but there was nothing about that in the announcement.
Sure.
Was that just like transitioning away from that role and leaving Prodigy?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And Prodigy's had like, I'm using the word interesting in the best sense, but history of how kind of it started and players, et cetera. What's the current like ownership model? And the reason I ask this, Will, is because we see things like House of Discs, which is major like venture funding, and then obviously plenty of private companies, Prodigy being private. Is there anything unique about the ownership model that influences you as a CEO?
Yeah, everybody within the company has been a player for a really long time, and
Oh.
it's not a venture capitalist group. There's no knock on that. It's not somebody that has been around for 35 or 40 years. We actually started from Prodigy. We don't have a background in, this company built us up and taught us what to do. We've really bootstrapped from the beginning. We've learned the ins and outs of manufacturing on our own. We've learned the ins and outs of making molds, making discs, expanding our product line, marketing, hot stamp, like all that stuff we have learned from the ground up. And so we're still nearly the youngest manufacturer out there. Everybody has 5, 10, or 30 years on us in the game when it comes to MVP. Even Dynamic Disc has been around way longer than we have. And, we're just kind of picking up, and we do get perceived that we've been around for a long time, but we're, when you go up against some pretty big giants like Innova and Discraft, like they really own the market in a lot of sense. And so it takes a lot of effort for people to either switch discs or switch their bag or get in certain stores or contracts and all that kind of stuff. And so it takes a lot of effort and a lot of communication and the right team. So, yeah.
How are you navigating or intending to navigate the market pressures after the upswing the last few years and it seems to be a clear downswing? Anything that you're particularly action you're taking or impact to you, or is just something you're kind of figuring out as you go?
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep your finger on the pulse. You got to see what's going on out there. You have to prepare for the worst, but really hope for the best, in the sense of really not overly investing in making a bunch of discs that sit on the shelf. We're very lucky that we make our own discs, and somebody's not making them and sending us to 100,000 at a time. We can make our discs and control our own supply. So, if we're selling a lot more discs, then we can ramp up and make more discs. If we're not selling as many discs, it's really easy to ramp back down and not make as many discs. So, we're fortunate that we can control our own pipeline in that sense. And yeah, it's just following the market, and it's not necessarily just disc golf. I think a lot of it is just the outdoor companies, outdoor recreational world is just kind of taking a knock over the last year or two. But again, we are fortunate we can make our own discs and we can be flexible.
Cool. All right, so different topic, and maybe no pun intended, the $1 million question. I don't know, but everybody wants to know. I mean, one, generally, what are you doing from player sponsorship? But are you re-signing Isaac Robinson? That's the question.
That's a very valid question. I can respect the question, but respectfully deny to answer.
I kind of expected that, so I'm not offended. Will.
Sure, it's not my stance to either confirm it or deny. It's not a Will Schusterick deal to announce. It's definitely a company deal one way or another. So just want to respect that stance. And same thing when it comes to player contracts. There's a lot of it has changed a lot throughout the course of even the last 3-4 years. I think it has pulled back a little bit. It's really interesting to be in a position and talk to disc golf agents that are out there and talking about professional players and doing this and doing that, and it has changed a lot. So it is really interesting coming from a stance of a player that won the United States Championship in 2010, and I got a $1,000 check and didn't even move up to the highest sponsorship tier of the biggest company. And that's what they told me. They told me that I wasn't a household name enough to be able to move up to Team Star. I'll never forget it.
I mean, it's easy to laugh about now, but it is interesting how it's grown. And
it's really crazy. And there's no knock on anybody, but it is just crazy that there's a lot of players that ask for a lot, and they like to be on tour, and it's just changed a lot. I think the entire realm of sponsorship in general has changed maybe more than the disc golf market itself. Whenever you look at it, just because when you look at three years ago, people are thinking that's their lifelong career. And, they're coming into this year thinking, no, that might not be the career that I want to look for the next 5 years, because it's not easy as it is, to go out there and secure some large contract out there. It's not as easy as it used to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we are. You're CEO of Prodigy. Climo leaves Innova. It's just kind of a crazy world we're living in. At least for those of us who've been in the sport for a long time. Thanks for putting up with a lot of my questions. I actually would love to talk more, Will. I love the business side of the sport. Again, congratulations, truly, because you're going to have a lot to deal with as a CEO that maybe you were already working on, but clearly you're going to have more kind of official responsibilities there. Nick, did you want to ask any follow-up?
Yeah, I kind of want to follow up with Will's thing, what he just said about, winning the 2010 USDGC. He didn't get promoted to the star team, but, years and years later, someone throws in an albatross and then they get promoted to the star team. So it was kind of, the difference of, the years going by. Will, I've always been a huge fan of yours, so congratulations.
It's true.
On my
He's
side
not
of
just
things.
saying this. I mean,
Yeah,
for years.
no, I've always been, a big Will Schusterick fan. So
Well, thank you.
It's awesome to be able to interview you, see you at the expo, stuff like that. Realistically, coming from being an incredible player and definitely, I would say a household name, especially back in the day, 3 USDGC titles, multiple Elite Series. They weren't Elite Series back then, but NTs and stuff like that. We had Jefferson from Disc Golf World on last week, and one of the big topic points that we were talking about were player contracts, ways for players to make money. Now, the grueling life of a touring pro. You've done it in a car, maybe even an RV at some points, but you kind of know, how much it cost back then. And then inflation over the last, let's say 10 years or whatever has gone up from then. One of the biggest things that we had talked about was kind of the ROI on players. When a company is going and looking at a player, it's how do they capitalize on the ROI? Now, I look at a big thing as players winning tournaments. So you have your Isaac Robinson, he got the big world championships 2 years in a row. But then at other points, he didn't capitalize on many other tournaments. But then you have Gannon Burr, who won, 9 Elite Series events this year with the USDGC title, or European Open title, excuse me, and then what was I going to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But didn't win the world championships. And so I guess kind of as a CEO now, how do you value what a player is worth? Like if a player comes up to you, myself, and I say, hey, Will, I deserve $60,000 a year. How do you personally value a player when negotiating contracts with their agent?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for maybe the best question so far over the last couple of podcasts. Very well thought out. Great question.
Thank you.
Wow.
Much
Can we give him some there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Whatever that noise was.
It's a point. It's a point for Nick.
Question. Perfect. Yeah, very, very. I like it. It's a good question because it's difficult to answer and it's difficult to ask because when you have somebody that's asking for a certain amount and then your response is, how do you actually put that in a return on investment? I'm good. Like you just said, you're asking for this. How do we see that coming in being returned? And it's hard to measure what social media presence done. Maybe somebody has 50,000 followers, 75,000 followers. Does that translate at the end of the day to the bottom line for a company selling discs? Because that's ultimately what they're looking to do. They're looking for your influence to bring your followers to try their brand out. And there's a lot of really good return for a newer company to sponsor players because they don't have any market presence at all. Mm-hmm. When you get near the top of going up against people like Innova and Discraft, there's a lot of different market share that is really hard to grab. And so you really need big time players, somebody like Simon and Eagle, which obviously MVP has invested in, that they see that return on investment. They see, hey, if I sell discs with Simon's name on it, there's a ton of his fans that are going to buy those discs. They probably have never thrown MVP discs, right? And so, at the end of the day, it is, can that player get their followers to try out and buy the brand? If we were going to put their name on discs, will they buy those discs? It's really hard to measure the actual marketing power a player brings to the table and taking a risk on it. At this time, there's not a lot of companies looking to take a risk of, maybe we can make a return on sponsoring and giving this person X amount of money. It's just really hard to see that return for a lot of companies right now.
Makes total sense. Cool. That was my big one. I know Josh had kind of brought up, talking about players and everything like that. I'm assuming there's conversations every single year of players potentially either leaving Prodigy or wanting to join into Prodigy. So I guess we kind of look forward to those. We off season's fun in the sense of we get to say, oh, who's leaving, who's going, to the next company, but it's all speculation right now. The podcasts, I think, get really interesting when signings actually happen when companies are able to market the player that they just signed, whatever, or even the farewells, all the stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like to, I mean, honestly, I'm a little different because when I talk to players and I tell them, hey, this is what we can do. There's no harm, no foul. If you can take it, great. If you want to work together, that's awesome. We've done a lot for players in the past coming up into the sport, and we've really kind of built a lot of careers. And I tell people like, hey, there might be this on this piece of paper, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do that's not listed on here that I can't even put into words. Like I can't put, down all of the things that we can do for that future of you as a player. And then I try to give some people suggestions because I was in that boat. Like, hey, you should definitely get as much as you can. You can only be a pro disc golfer for so long, but also try to plan out your future career as well. Find ways to make money off tour, and don't solely rely on making money at tournaments. Unless you're a top 5, top 10 player, run events. Learn how to do lessons online. Learn how to make YouTube videos. There's a lot of ways that you can get creative on making money.
Yeah. As a newly elected CEO, 2025, do you have like an A-list priority? This is my number one thing that I want to get done, whether it's signing the best player in the world or some sort of marketing strategy. I know you have a million things that you want to do, but is there one thing that you, as you took on the role, said, this is something that I want to change, or this is something that I want to work on?
I would say near my number one thing is just people to have a better brand perception of what Prodigy is as a company. I think that's something that we've really missed out over the last couple of years is, it's not necessarily bad communication. I think that it has just been, I think it has been almost an unspoken communication. And when you have other people speak for you, it's usually not spoken in the right way. And, there's a lot of hard decisions. There's a lot of unpopular decisions that I'm going to be putting my hand up and saying that's something that we discussed and we were able to not do it or do it. You get credit for good decisions and get credit for really bad decisions. And I think for the bad decisions or difficult decisions, I think just talking about it and explaining like, hey, this is the best direction for the company is a better way to approach it than just kind of leaving it and letting the pot stir around and what people want to talk about and kind of create their own assumptions. Because I think that just communication in all facets, whether it's sales, marketing, executive decisions, just communication on what the direction is for the company as a business, then people have a better sense of who they're buying for, what they're supporting, and kind of what's going on behind the curtain. And I've said it a couple times in a few different podcasts is some people didn't really know who were behind Prodigy. And I've been with the company from the very beginning, as you know, and I've made a lot of decisions that are my decisions and some were not. But I'm excited to be the responsible one to really make the best decision for the company moving forward.
Very cool. I love it. That's all I got on my side.
I had not related to Prodigy really, but when you hear news that's coming out like, hey, new tour or player restrict, I don't know how much news you hear, but we're in the disc golf talk, so we talk about as much as we can. Like, do you get excited hearing things like that, the growth of the sport in that way? Have you heard anything about this new tour?
I have not heard anything about the new tour.
Oh. Can we break the news to you? Can we break the news to you?
Sure. If you would like to do it, you're more than welcome.
GK Pro, you may be familiar with. They rebranded to Go Throw. So now they are Go Throw. Still a media company, but they now have a Go Throw Tour, which right now has been announced to be about maybe 6 events, maybe a few more. Eagles Crossings, Persimmon Ridge, all the courses that are fairly well known. They've been at before. They're saying they're not competing with the Pro Tour. They're in alternating weeks type thing. When you hear something like that, what does it do to a CEO of a manufacturer? Does that excite you?
Yeah, of course. I think anything like that is great for the sport. We need a lot of that. Like I've seen tours come and go. I've seen tournaments come and go. I've seen big ideas come and go. And I'm excited to see something like that come in because it's another thing that fans can follow, and we need more fans in the sport to be able to better access tournaments and be able to go and watch professional disc golf, because that's what got me being a professional disc golfer, watching professional disc golf. And I do think it needs to be more accessible to watch the pro side of people playing. Obviously, there's YouTube. That's about as accessible as you can really get to watch professional disc golf. Like I'm not sure what the full tour is. Like you said, 6 and 8 events. Like that's awesome. It's not competing with the pro tour as long as it's on a different schedule. That means that more people can have access to go watch tournaments and be out there and connect with pro players and see it on that next level. So I'm always happy for that kind of stuff. I'll have to look it up, but usually I wait for my friends to send me a message and say, hey, have you seen this going on?
You may be familiar with Luke Humphreys. He's the man who made the announcement on YouTube through the Go Throw channel now. Look up Go Throw. It's not GK Pro. And then you just made you talked about seeing tours come and go. Which one stands out to you? Any of them, most notably, as being like, oh, that was interesting. There's one that at least that stands out for me.
I think there was, I don't know if it was a tour or a tournament that tried to happen in like South Carolina that actually got on ESPN.
Yeah.
You guys remember this?
It was like an American.
Is this the one that had the Hooter girls with the signs?
Yeah.
It could have been. I didn't end up watching it, but you never know what something like that is going to happen. Was like,
right.
Everybody's waiting for disc golf to take that. It used to be like, can't wait for disc golf to take that next level, take that next level. Like it has taken that next level, right? It has been that next thing. So it's like, I think everybody was kind of questioning, is this the next thing?
Yeah.
Like, should we get on board for this? Should we be excited? Because nobody knew anything about it, right? And that's a great thing. Like if there was better communication over what was going on, who was doing it, what the whole deal was, people might have just jumped right on board and loved it. They might have loved it even more than I really don't know. It didn't go anywhere, so they probably didn't love it that much.
Yeah.
So if they better communicated, people might have been all about it. Who knows?
It is a little bit of it's a lot of connection in the industry, because if you know the right people, but being able to communicate it to the right people that are in the know. The World Tour stands out. Did you ever play any of that?
Yeah. I still have a bunch of custom discs from them, and that was basically the European tour, right? I think it changed from. It was the World Tour, but it was something different before that.
Maybe, but it was the World Tour, and yes, like they were kind of the parallel with the
like
Pro
La
Tour.
Yeah.
But they also.
That's right. I think I played all of them the first year. I played the one in La Mirada for sure. But I have I remember.
And they overlapped with US Disc Golf Championship as well.
I think USDGC was a World Tour.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was like Australia, USDGC.
That's right, Australia.
So, an interesting mix. That was a UC
I forgot
thing.
about that. I wouldn't have even classified that as a tour. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no FPO division, so it was like, can you actually call it?
Oh, that's right. Katrina played.
She would play MPO
in the European Open that year, or any all the events. Maybe.
She played La Mirada as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Now I remember all that. Yeah.
Right. I wonder if there's any other tours we're forgetting now, but anyway,
sure
at the point, obviously the Disc Golf Pro Tour started, the Elite Series or the National Tour, but anyways, we're probably missing one, but I think it's fantastic to have you on, Will. As I said, and when I texted you this, I meant it, watching you as a player, as a fan, watching you as a player, and then winning and doing all that you did, then working so long at Prodigy, and frankly seeing you on social media with your family as well. That's awesome and exciting. I get to enjoy the same thing, but it's cool to see you enjoying that. And now CEO of Prodigy. You mentioned that you guys are a young company, and I'm trying to put it together. Was this announced back in what year was Prodigy? Like 2010? Like I don't even know. 12, 13?
2013.
13.
Okay.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, that's 11 years. That's or going into, I guess, 12, but that is very new as far as
I feel like you've been around forever. I'm sorry, but I guess that's what you were mentioning. Even me being in the sport, I'm like, of course.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day if I'm near Masters age, and it made me want to curl up in a ball. I was like, oh, come on, man.
Masters.
Well, you have the CEO title now, so you think that adds 5-10 years,
There you go. Yeah. It's like a second kid after a couple years.
Yeah.
So Nick, you were playing disc golf by then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
dude,
Josh,
I putted with PA4s for the second PA4s came out. I was putting with them.
I I collected a lot of the first releases of that. Like, I guess they were
All the proto
prototypes.
stuff.
The
Mhm.
blue D1s that were overweight for whatever reason. I had some of those.
Mhm.
Sold those off. I had the D4s. Like, I had the M4s and M1. Anyways, like, I was like, dude, this new company is going to be something. I'm just going to collect
Yeah.
it all. And then, like, I don't know why. I just sold it all off. Like, that year, people wanted it so bad.
You had a gold mine.
Yeah, so I just
Yeah.
sold it off.
Those yellow M4s.
I might still have a few somewhere in my garage, but
A couple people.
but Will, and I'm just reminiscing now. It's kind of funny because you're like, dude, I know I was part of this. But when the announcement came for Prodigy, like, it was the silhouette, if I remember correctly, of everybody, and it was like, this new company's coming, and everyone's like, what is this? And then there's Will when they race away the silhouette. There you are. I mean, that must have been pretty exciting. And ever since then, you've been a part of this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
just from the beginning. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We kind of started the rage of sponsorships and
Right. That
good,
was
good
new.
and bad. But I think it brought a lot of interest to the sport. Honestly, like a lot of people started paying attention more to like what discs people were throwing, and it kind of started that whole rage. For
Cool.
the good and maybe some bad. But the disc golf needed some interesting stuff because it was only Innova and Discraft. Like you had a little bit of Gateway. Nico was throwing and sponsored by Gateway.
That's right.
But really, outside of that, like MVP didn't even sponsor players. I think they were around 5 years or more before we even came out. I think it's 2008
Holy
whenever
cow.
they came out.
Wow.
They
I had
didn't
my
sponsor
timeline's all messed up.
anybody for years.
Yeah.
They used to send me prototypes to my house in Nashville, and they would, I remember when they first came out with their mid-range, and for a couple months when Prodigy only had a couple discs, I had like a few non-stamped MVP discs because they only had that one putter that's like now a $500 putter or something like that. But it's probably under a bunch of dirt in my old house in Nashville that just got buried or chewed up by a lawnmower.
Yeah, those like clear ions or whatever they were, I guess, or whatever disc it was. I guess they're worth a lot. But yeah, same for me. I don't know where it is, but that's great. You're just reminding me of a lot of that history. That was a big part of it. Was like, wow, all of these players are getting paid or cash or whatever it was. Like, it was like this big exciting move. And to your point, maybe there was things to be learned there, and maybe there's things that were good or to be learned from. So fantastic, Will. We appreciate your time so much. I know with the long days of work and then the family and this, we really appreciate you taking some time to join us here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good evening, and we'll catch you another time.
All right.
All right. Bye. Okay, everybody. Will Schusterick, current, new CEO of Prodigy. I thought there was a lot of good insight there, and someone in the chat said, and I actually think this somewhat resonates a little bit. If you were someone who was like kind of happy to see Gannon go, or Isaac maybe to move along, which, by the way, Will didn't say it explicitly, but the way he acknowledged, like, hey, that's somebody else's decision to make, another manufacturer, whoever. Some people are having a little bit of different feeling knowing that the CEO is Will. Like, maybe that changes your perspective about the brand, just that alone. And you're like, man, you know what? I kind of like Prodigy. And frankly, good on them, right? I mean, good on Will. Like, that's a good opportunity for him to be in that new position and have a positive response.
I agree. I asked him about Isaac, and he laughed. And then Nick asked him a question.
I think he was so caught off guard.
Yeah, and he literally stops and says, Nick, that's the best question. So, like, that's pretty amazing.
I was pretty stoked.
After I asked like 10 questions.
Yeah, when he said that, I was kind of stunned. I was just like, damn, like, okay.
I've been on multiple podcasts. Yeah. I just listened to Josh's questions. But
that's what I'm like, wait a minute. I just asked you 10 questions, I guess. Anyway.
Nick read the last question on your list, Josh. That's how it goes.
Right.
Yeah, must have been. No, it just fit perfectly. And I'm such a Will fan. I'm a fanboy, especially player. The same thing. If we had Nate Doss on the show, I'd be fanboying over Nate Doss. There's no doubt about it. I think one of the coolest things, like Matt, when I got into the game was 2012, 2013. I was putting with a wizard. I actually had an Ion back in the day. There were, random discs that I had, but then when Prodigy came out, it was like, ooh, this new company, I definitely want to check them out. They're supposed to be like the most premium plastic. That's what everyone's talking about. And then you have the splash of they had like 12 of the best pros, some of the best pros out there. Most of the top players that were actually touring full time, minus Macbeth and, maybe a few others. But they had come in with such a splash, and talking about it 11 years later, 12 years later, realistically, they still find a way to stay relevant in the news, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, stuff about the lawsuit with Gannon, or manufacturing is being done somewhere else and then manufacturing is back here. Will Schusterick's now CEO. All these things. Isaac Robinson wins, back-to-back world championships with Prodigy discs. So they've managed to stay kind of in the spotlight as one of the big companies in our sport. Are they a smaller big company? Probably. But at the same time, you got to remember that, Discraft and Innova do have the 30 years plus of experience on Prodigy discs. But I don't know. I think their splash getting into the sport made way more of a statement than a lot of other newer companies. And, not to throw jabs at any smaller companies, but like Lone Star, they make some marketing stuff, and you hear about Lone Star, but you don't see any Lone Star players really at the top of the game. Mint discs, Mason Ford's their number one guy, but you don't really see a lot about mint discs. But at the same time, this is where what we were talking about last week as well, is a lot of players just want a ton of money right now. And so a lot of companies just don't have that. The smaller ones don't have that right now. So, I think it's a great move. I think Will's got a love for the game. I don't really know the disc manufacturing side of things, how much money that brings in. I don't really know what elevates their game, except for what Josh asked, was just the quality of the plastic, no more flashing. And I think Will said it perfectly, which was, we want to make sure that, if it leaves our factory, I myself would be comfortable throwing that disc. You don't want to let out crap plastic. And so, I thought it was a great interview.
A lot of interviews tonight, and frankly, we didn't have all of them planned right up to the beginning of the show. We're grateful that Jeff joined, obviously Steve and Mats, and then Will there. We didn't have a lot to, I guess, for our own commentary, but that's okay. You heard the answers or the conversations right from the mouth of the sources in these cases. We appreciate you guys always joining in. We're excited about the coming season for sure. We're constantly working to improve the show and develop it, bring new ideas, how we can entertain and inform. And we'll always try to get the best guest. Ben was not here tonight, as we mentioned earlier on. He'll be back. We'll get to hear all about his adventures. Anything else before we go, guys?
No, spread the word. I mean, we love talking about disc golf. We said before, we do it because we enjoy it, and we have opinions, and we have connections. But like sometimes I see on social media people say, "Hey, what good podcasts are out there?" I'm like, "Hey, come on, spread the word. Let them know we exist."
This is literally not a complaint or trying to say we're better than we are, but the algorithm is pretty mean to us on YouTube. And I think, I'm not super familiar, but I think it has to do with our name change a little bit. I'm not saying we deserve more, but I know that sometimes people comment and say they think we deserve more. If you feel like that's the case, give us a thumbs up, share, like, subscribe, spread the word. We're going to try to new and improve come 2025. We've got a few more shows left. Nick, go ahead and sign us out, man.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in on this wonderful Monday night of Stagger Stance. Thanks to all of our sponsors and our future sponsors who we will be announcing coming into the 2025 season. We are super excited about all of those things. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. And if you're not busy at the end of the month, come on down to Olympus's A tier. If you're an amateur, it's a 2-day event. A tier, going to be an awesome time. So tell someone you love them this week. We'll catch you guys all in the next one.
That's right. Nick, you're awesome. Josh, you're awesome. Until next time, everybody, peace out.
Still here. We're still here. Does this mean we're coming back for a round 2?